Hello, I'm Paul Sudnick, and in this meeting we're going to look at practical ways of mapping competitive advantage. So here we see again the various elements that we've talked about. We're trying to build a more complex diagram here. On the top we see the beige squares that deal with the resources and capabilities that we've been looking at so far. We say here, for example, that resources constitute the people, the materials, and also some subjective things that we might consider as things that we have in our knapsack as we go to war, if you like. On the left-hand side, we have the capabilities, the know-how functions, the processes of how to do things, the organization and culture that we bring to the organization, and the style of management. So really we're talking, as we've said before, about what we are able to do. These things come together to produce the strategic excellence positions that provide us with the basis for our core competence and answer the question, what is it that makes us so special? And we've been looking around these areas up to so far in the previous lectures in this series. But we now bring these together down into the activities. We're actually going to start doing stuff. And you'll remember also from your studies of strategy, Porter's value chain, that splits up all the areas of activity that the firm undertakes and answers questions like, what do we do and how do we do it? What are the costs of doing these things? What do we do differently to others? And what do we not do consciously? What are the things that we actually consciously decide that we're not going to do? So these activities, to some extent, have a strategic relationship with questions like our position in the market, the location, the physical location of where we are, the size of our company, the synergies that we have with other strategic business units, and integration, vertical or horizontal, around the company. So essentially looking at the elements of the value chain. So at this point, at what we're calling here level 3 activities, we're bringing together these resources, capabilities into strategic excellence positions, which then drive us to actually do stuff. And we're actually looking now to deliver this competitive advantage in terms of benefits for 3 groups: our customers, because we want them to enjoy the benefits of what working with us brings, or from buying our products brings. These might be performance advantages, they might be price advantages, but at the end of the day, the customer is going to walk away from this relationship with us and say, yes, this was an excellent experience. In terms of other companies in the industry, the competitive advantage that we have will deliver us a cost advantage. We'll be able to do things cheaper than other companies, and this will give us more space for profit, as we'll see in the next level of analysis. And these cost advantages may also be bolstered by differentiation advantages, things that we not only do cheaper, but things that we do differently and better in a way that they are experienced by the customer, and the customer may be saying, yeah, this is really worth the effort to work with this company. And of course, we will be working with other stakeholders as well, so there will be social advantages provided to society, ecological advantages as we embrace environmental factors within our sustainability processes. And we will then be bringing together all of these things in the lowest level here, what we call number 1, financial success, because the competitive advantage will have enabled us to increase our sales volume, both in terms of units, but then not only our sales volume, but also our sales value, as we will have been able to charge either a higher price or alternatively a lower price with lower costs. So our turnover, which is price times units sold minus costs, filters out into the success that we have that's been brought about through this whole process of delivering the strategic excellence positions through marrying the resources and capabilities internally before we step out into the market and start doing things whilst taking into account the strategic factors that are around that. This delivers then competitive advantage to our customers, the company, and to other stakeholders, and then ultimately this translates into a better price. This translates into a better turnover in terms of price times units, which in turn delivers profitability after subtraction of costs. I want to look now at a couple of practical tools that we can use for making this analysis. So far, we've built theoretical frameworks based on diagrams of what's going on, and I think you've got now a very deep theoretical understanding of the things that we're talking about here. But how do you actually translate these things into practice? At the end of the day, we are all studying at universities of applied sciences. We want to know ways in which we can actually deliver this theory into our day-to-day practice. And this capability analysis checklist provides us on the left-hand side with a series of areas of activity which essentially follow the value chain. And then within each of these elements, we break out some of the important parts of the doing, if you like. So in marketing, we would say that the choice of goods offered, the brand image that we pursue, the pricing model that we pursue. And in manufacturing, we'd look at productivity, so the amount of output that we get for the amount of input. We'd look at capacities that we have, our ability to produce more or curtail production in the event of decreasing demand, or to increase production in the event of increasing demand. In R&D, we'd look at our know-how, the number of patents that we have. In finance, the important indicators are liquidity, so the amount of cash we've got on hand in order to pay current bills, working capital, the cost of capital. In terms of staffing and HR, we'd be interested in knowing something about the age structure of the people who work with us, their qualifications, so their abilities, their know-how, and also things like company culture in terms of the team spirit, and finally the leadership management of the company, the competences of the managers and the ability to make good decisions. And having identified these criteria, and this, I must underline, is an example. You can put in there whatever criteria you feel like having, criteria that are important to you. And then we make some relative assessments with competitors. Now here, these assessments just look like, crosses under columns, right? Worse, same, better. Apparently, we're evaluating our marketing here, the choice of goods as being worse than the competitor, our brand image as being the same. In terms of manufacturing, we're saying that our productivity and capacity management is better than competitors. Obviously, these crosses are the product of some sort of analysis, but we've also tried to evaluate what competitors have in the same fields, and now we're making some kind of comparison. And in the final column, you've got the possibility to make some explanatory notes under rationale. I hasten to add that documents like this, any matrix that we offer you in management studies as a tool, ought actually to be a living document, in the sense that you make the analysis, you do the filling in of the columns, but then after that, you don't just put it in your drawer and walk away. You should be on a regular basis going back and updating this information. I think within the framework of the project that you're doing on this module, I think that once you've done the analysis, you've done it. Nothing much is going to change in the space of 10 to 12 weeks. On the other hand, if you're running a company and doing this kind of analysis at the beginning of the year, then you shouldn't expect by the end of the year the content of this analysis remains the same. Things change, and so your analytics should change too, and be reflected in these developing tools which are there to guide you as a manager. Let's look at another tool which I also think is quite useful. This is more of a graphical representation. Along the bottom, you'll see that we have a number of purchasing criteria, competitive factors, we're calling them here. And these, again, can be anything. For the sake of argument here, we're talking about price, product quality, customer service, delivery, and ecology. But again, you can use anything here that is relevant for the market that your company is working in. After-sales service might be an important factor here. The ability to carry out ongoing servicing on equipment might be something that your customers value, and that therefore you should be able to evaluate your position in the market. And then in the right-hand column here, we see relative performance, competitor A, competitor B, our own firm. And as we then look at each of these purchasing criteria, starting with price and then with product quality, we can see how a picture emerges, a graphic emerges, if you like, what we call here a strategic canvas emerges, which allows us to see very clearly how we correspond to the offer of companies who are competing with us. And then, of course, if we find that we have a low relative performance on customer service, naturally we should then take the best efforts we can to actually go and improve that. If we have a high relative performance on delivery, that doesn't mean that we can sit back and do nothing. Clearly, we have to continue working hard in order to maintain that relative performance, because it's through relative performance that we maintain our competitive advantage. So I think we've looked at two tools here, one that is more based on analytics and goes quite deeply into the advantages that we have, and one that presents a graphical output and allows us to estimate where we are. And I think that when you're doing your project now, I feel that you can make use of both of these, or one or the other. Don't be frightened to adapt. I don't think these are prescriptive models. They are models that show you what you can actually do in terms of plotting the advantages that your company has, or in this case, the focal company has. So you can plot those advantages and do anything that you want to do. Feel free to add arrows flashing here and underlinings and highlightings here and there in order to help you analyze the situation and prepare your assignment. Finally, then, I want to bring together all the elements in the VRIO. You remember Barney's VRIO model that we talked about a couple of sessions ago. And this table shows how we can actually plot all the resources and capabilities of the firm using the VRIO model, translating that into competitive advantage positions. So if we have essentially nothing valuable, nothing rare, nothing costly to imitate, and nothing that can be exploited by the firm, then in terms of competitive advantage, we are actually at a disadvantage and our performance will be below average. If, however, we manage to bring in something valuable into the equation, something that the customer thinks is really very, very good, so, I don't know, perhaps carton boxes for milk rather than glass bottles, if that's of value, the next question, is it rare? But if we have no information or no advantage on cost and organization, then we are in a position of competitive parity, performance is average, things are okay, nothing special is going on. But if we start building in rarity into the model, we now have value and rarity, but no cost advantages and no management advantages, then we have a competitive advantage, and that's excellent because we can now perform at an above average level. But really what we're seeking is this bottom line where we have 4 yeses, we have sustained competitive advantage, and we can perform above average because we've actually got together all of Barney's elements and we've worked very, very hard to create ourselves this valuable, rare, costly to imitate and well organized position for the company. And we've used the previous 2 tables to plot the way in which we get to that. So we've actually transferred the VRIO model into a practical application that you can use as you develop your assignments.